you telling me?
Yeah, honey? That's the route you're gonna go down right now? I hope you feel like you're gonna get a good night's sleep because that shit ain't happening.
Alright, so... Excuse you. Stop fucking throwing water at me. What's wrong with you? Get out my glasses, I can't see. Alright, crazy person. So what have you been doing for the last day or so? Get everybody caught up with what your issues are and what you've been working on.
They can't see me.
Oh. Go ahead now.
Just the portfolio page and the notes. I know we finished JavaScript, but I'm still going over everything on myself. I'm still trying to catch up. Dylan wants me to focus on the portfolio page, which has been kind of like a mental block for me because, well, he kind of helped me right now, and I feel foolish because he was just like, oh, why don't you just do this, this, and this, and this? And I'm like, oh, damn, I could have broken that up too. So, gonna get that done. Fortunately, it's all stuff I already know how to do. So, hopefully having him help me break it up. I think what it was I couldn't really think of that myself because when I was looking at the code for the example page, I got really intimidated very quickly with all the JavaScript and all the other coding that was there. So I think that I let that overwhelm me. So fortunately or unfortunately, anyways, I'm back on track with my portfolio. So hopefully I'll have that done in a little bit. And for studying, at least I'm happy that I'm doing it on my own, or I can read it, understand what the hell they're saying, and type in what they're asking me to without. Because before, for like the first 6 days, I was having to watch the videos, see the answer, then go back and try to understand what the hell they were saying, and keep doing that. So finally now I'm able to read it, do it, and then look at the video and go, yep, I got it. Hear it again and fully digest it. So that's what I've been doing. Really boring. I'm going crazy, getting annoyed, getting a little bored, but it's okay because today we're starting something new and I'm really scared of it. So
So today's an interesting day because I'm not quite sure where to go from here. Because I was hoping that you would have the portfolio done at this point, and we were.
Oh my god, you're so ambitious of me. You should have told me.
So that's what I was hoping. That's kind of thrown off my game plan. So let me
Look at this. Look at this. Who's this? 2 months?
That's somebody else from earlier.
Oh. Still though, 2 months. Whew. I don't know. I think I should have a good basic build up within this week. I've just had like a mental block on it. So.
Okay, well that's why I'm here to help.
Yeah, but sometimes I don't like your help. You're not very nice. Just say.
All right. I'm trying to think what we should do.
It's okay, Godwin. I can't keep up with this either. So.
I'm trying to think if we should jump into.
Hi, Godless Monkey. Thanks again for the book.
All right, so you've already started studying HTML and CSS. We could go over front-end libraries, but are you using Bootstrap in your portfolio at all?
Well, they had me put default for Bootstrap, so I don't know. Let's go over Bootstrap. Why not?
I'm hesitant to go over Bootstrap because I'm bad at CSS because I use Bootstrap too much.
What do you mean you're bad at CSS?
because I use Bootstrap classes, which are the CSS classes.
So you're cheating at CSS.
Sort of, yeah. And it's affected me in a negative manner. I don't want you to pick up my bad habits. So that's why I'm a little bit...
Well, here's the catch. I'm not you.
Yeah. Why don't we go into jQuery?
What's jQuery?
So...
Is that part of the mean stack? No.
To a degree. Not really, though. Rita says, should I learn PowerShell if I want to become a programmer? It's not a bad idea. Use git bash or whatever. So jQuery is a library that you use. It's a JavaScript library that you use hand in hand with JavaScript sometimes. And so, similar to how Bootstrap has built-in classes, remember how JavaScript had certain functions that were built in? jQuery is a library that you import, and then it allows you to do certain things easier in JavaScript because they've built functions to do that.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of it is where jQuery shines is, and you use JavaScript within it. What jQuery really does is it's called DOM manipulation. It has the JavaScript.
Sounds kinky.
It's not. It basically how the JavaScript interacts with the HTML and the CSS. jQuery makes it slightly easier to do that. Now it's considered kind of an outdated framework and library, but it's still important that you use it. And when you get started on the projects that actually do require JavaScript, you'll probably get started with jQuery. I'm hesitant to have you do this though, because I think you really should start doing the algorithms. Why don't we how about this? We're gonna switch spots today.
Oh shit. You said day 30, you fucking liar. And then I heard you tell Matt day 50, so...
Well... Okay, let's do the debugging thing today. So you saw how I was debugging my code? And you're like, hey, I don't know how these functions exist and stuff like that.
Why is jQuery considered outdated?
jQuery, outdated might have been the wrong word. jQuery is still has its place, but the libraries and frameworks that you'll be getting paid money for are Angular and React. jQuery is used in a limited case. Now, it's really only used as a crutch of web designers, I would say. So it's not... Huh? What?
Just saying that hurts.
But it's also slower than certain libraries. But it's just look, man, you're not gonna get hired as a web developer only knowing jQuery is what I'm trying to say.
So could you get hired as a what is it called? Developer or something? What?
Web designer?
Web designer just by doing like JavaScript?
Web developer. So a web designer would be HTML, CSS usually. Web developer, a front-end web developer is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but in reality, you need to have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, and then Angular or React.
For front end.
For front end.
To be considered a junior.
To put yourself in a situation where you would land a junior role, yes. Okay.
That's a lot.
So we're going to be doing the debugging because this is going to be crucial. Now that we went over the JavaScript, you need to know how to solve issues in your logic in JavaScript.
Okay.
We have not got to any Udemy resources yet. I'm having her work through Free Code Camp first, and then we eventually will buy some Udemy courses. Okay, so debugging is a valuable and necessary tool for programmers. That's a very true statement.
Did you think of that yourself?
Yeah. Essentially, what debugging means is finding errors in your logic and finding where your code is broken. That's what debugging means.
I'm surprised that there isn't a program that does it for you.
Well, there's things that help you debug, but because the computer can't read your mind, it can only read your code.
It doesn't know what is broken and what's not broken. So it'd be like, hey, look, this might be the thing that's broken.
Yeah.
Check it out.
And usually that's more syntax. So there's different types of errors when talking about. The easy ones are the syntax ones, where I misspelled a keyword or I forgot a semicolon or a bracket. Those are the easy ones because the computer will say, hey, this is missing or this is incorrect. Now the hard ones are logic errors, where you just don't understand, or you wrote some code that you thought you understood, and you have to go find where your brain was going wrong when you wrote that code.
Or you have to look at someone else's code and see what the hell they're doing.
Which you're not, as a developer, you'll never have that.
What? Why not?
Because as a developer, you're making a unique web application, and there isn't like, hey, let me just copy this web app and see what they did wrong. And even if you're making a similar product, what's going to happen is you're using different libraries, you're having a different take on it, your architecture is different.
Yeah, so it couldn't be the same unless it's like exactly the same.
Yeah. Now you may find a similar issue that's going on, but anyhow. So debugging is the process of finding what's wrong with your code and then eventually fixing it. Debugging is a finding process, but so we're talking here about syntax errors. So in this case, the syntax error that we're being able to see is you'll see our function, remember at the parentheses? When we have a function, we're missing the closing one right here. So this would be an example of a syntax error where we don't have that other parentheses.
What parentheses? Oh, yeah, there needs to be a double parentheses before
Yes. See, we have the opening one, but we don't have the closing one after it.
Okay.
So that's a syntax error. A runtime error, this is also referred to as an infinite loop, is when basically it's going to crash your browser because your loop is never ending.
There's no
nothing to break that, right?
Right, that's the word break, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nothing to break us out of this loop.
Right.
Because it's always true because we don't have anything changing it.
Right. So before the end of that, you would put break.
You put break, or you would put anything else. Yeah. Anything but just true that you don't have a way of breaking the loop. So there's a lot of different ways to break loops, but in this case, there's no way set up to break the loop. Thus, we have an infinite loop or a runtime error. Semantic. Semantic error or logic errors, where, say, you want to calculate the area of a rectangle. In this example, it's the correct way to do that is length times width, or height times width, to find the area of a rectangle. But here you did w plus h, or you added the two values, so it's going to be incorrect. And so this is thank you, Hamura, for watching the stream. But this is what is referred to as a semantic error or a logic error. These are the hardest of all the errors because you have to find out where you're wrong. The other one, this is kind of like a logic error. This is just a special one because of infinite loop. Here, your code actually runs. It does something. And
you're just not getting the right answer.
Exactly. So this is the free code camp's right on. Debugging is frustrating at times.
Sounds exciting.
And so the section that we're about to do is going to cover a lot of different tools that are used in debugging and the ways that you can find those semantic errors, those runtime errors, those syntax errors. So that's what this section is going to be about. So you saw me do it already when we were debugging, so some of these things may be familiar, where if you want to see what the value is, so maybe you're getting incorrect value and you need to trace your steps. So anywhere that object is added, you want to print that value in its current iteration. So console log right here, sum b, is going to return in the browser, in the console, what that value is.
Okay. So
right here, what we want to see, we want to console.log the value of a. And then if we go and inspect over here, so A is 5 here, right? And then we're doing A++.
Where's
A++.
+1?
So we want to see, hey, I want to make sure this is right. So let's make sure we're adding 1 to A. And we run it. You'll see that we are. So you see the 6? That's our A.
So you're really not adding 5, you're really adding 6.
In this case, yeah, because we're adding 1 to it. But one way that we can print out the value of things is with console log to see that. Cool. There's also the type of function. This will tell us what type. Like maybe you're getting an error and you don't know why. It could be that you're trying to add a number with a string and your code's not set up to work like that, or whatever the case may be. You're doing a triple equals and the type's wrong, so it's failing. So maybe you want to check what the type of it is. You can do that.
Why can't you just go back and look?
Well, you could, but things are getting very complicated very quickly in software. And so this is one way that you could check the type of. Maybe you have something in your code where you want to only add it if the type of it's equal to a string, or it's equal to a number, or it's a boolean. Like there's different things that you may want to know what the type of it is.
Yeah, but okay, I'll just accept it. I just can't, like, why can't you just go back and look? But I can understand if you have like 50,000 lines of code and you're like, where do I go back to look?
I mean, this is just one of your one of your tools to help you debug.
Okay.
Hey, buddy, come on.
Hi.
So here we're gonna console.log type. Oops. How frequently do you find yourself in debugging mode at work? Every day.
Good question, Fab. I had the
Type
same one. I just didn't ask.
Type of 7.
Okay, add 2 console log statements to check your
Oops. So
check the type of each 2 variables, 7 and 3.
Oh, I forgot one.
Yeah.
So here, what this is going to return is the
7.
which would be number, and then we're going.
So it'll tell you number.
It'll tell you number.
Okay, and then console log type of string.
Of 3 would be string.
Weird. What if you can't see the number? How do you get the type of then?
What do you mean?
Like, you can see 7 and 3.
The variables, yes.
Yeah, you can see them. What if the code is so big you don't know what you're looking for? So how would you do type of then?
You always know because the code's there.
Then why would you need... Oh, okay.
Well, part of debugging is finding out where your problem is also. And this, you may start in one section and it may be 1,000 lines below depending on how the code's connected.
I still don't see how this is useful if you already see the code. Why do you need to know? Of course it's a 7. I can see that it's a 7.
Okay, but it's not going to be this simple. What may happen is that 7, that variable 7, all you're going to have is the variable that you're passing in, and it may have jumped between 10 functions and changed here, 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 and here. And so instead of us having to write out that value every time, we can print out the value and we can find out what the type of it is.
So it's going to pull every 7.
It's going to pull the one. It's not going to pull anything. It's going to give you the type of 7 at this point in the scope. So depending on where we console log, if we have multiple, the 7 as it's passing through, it's going to print out that value, or the type of 7 at that time. All right, let me give you an example. So here, what happens when we console log 7, the type of 7 out?
What do you mean?
When we print this out, what's the value that it's printing out? Is
A
it
number.
good? So now imagine that we did this 10 fucking times in the background where we did true. So 7, when we console log 7 again, type of 7. Now it jumped around. It's not on one screen. It's not right here. It's jumped around 10 different functions because this calls this, that calls this, that calls this, that calls this. Sometimes it calls this one because we have an if statement. Sometimes it calls that one. It ran 30 times here. And so now, in this case, a very simple case, it's no longer a number. It is here because we haven't changed it yet. But it isn't here because now it's a Boolean. Because we're overriding the value.
Okay.
So what's? I guess I don't understand the question then.
Okay. Okay, so now 7 is a boolean.
Yes.
And I'm trying to find out what type of value it is. So if I say type of 7 and I don't get anything back, then what? That's going to help me know that it's not a 7?
Yeah, so if you say type of 7 right here, and it returns undefined, it means that somewhere you didn't set your variable equal to what it needs to be. Or somewhere in your logic, something broke, or maybe you were...
Okay, so if you're in a scope, and you need to make sure that your 7 stays a number 7 all the way through it, and when you console log type of 7 and it doesn't come back as a number, you know that there's something messed up in it.
Yeah, that you're on the right path, and now you got to go back. And so this is one of the tools that you can do.
Okay.
Okay. So here, you'll see that you're normally not going to get something like this saying receivables is not defined. But what may happen in your text editor is it will look for this variable and it will underline it and say you have not defined this variable anywhere. And this is what's known as a syntax error.
Wouldn't you put something in there like that as a placeholder?
What do you mean as a placeholder?
What do you mean? What do I mean as a placeholder? Can't you put like things down as placeholders?
You're talking about, I think you're talking about a function that has a parameter.
Maybe.
And that parameter you pull out and you call the function and that parameter goes in there.
No, it's not defined. It's just to hold the place for a future value later.
I think you're talking about functions.
Okay.
I think you're a little confused right now. But in this instance,
look, Dylan, I know what I'm talking about.
All right, in this instance, all right, all right. So in this instance, there is no payable placeholder, right? Because there's payables. But because we put the S on it, the computer doesn't know what payable is. It knows what payables is, plural. So this would be an example of where maybe in our IDE it would be underlined because this doesn't exist.
Okay. So would you have to go back to that line of code, or could you like put something to correct it?
Yeah. So we would just go and we put S on it to fix it.
No function to throw an S on there.
No, why would we do that?
Oh my God.
Why would we write a function for an error in our code?
No, to fix the error in the code.
No, it doesn't know. The only help you'll get is something in the text editor showcasing you that there's a mistake.
You look so cute.
I know. All right. Receivables is not defined. And so, like right here, you'll see that this spell.
Oh God.
So now, Control C, and you just go ahead and do that like so. And
I'm the worst with E's and I's.
So
You
now,
know that saying that I before E except for
every other time, like.
it's like the stupidest thing in my life.
Okay, so here you'll see that this is pretty common. You'll see that we're missing something, and in Free Code Camp's IDE it gives us some hints, and in your IDE it might as well. So we'll see. We'll see that. So like, what's wrong with my array? Look at my array. It's saying, hey, there's something wrong in this line.
Shouldn't it be my R?
It's just a variable.
Oh, it doesn't have to be my R?
No, it can be anything.
Like we normally have been setting it?
No.
Does it have to be let? Isn't it supposed to be like var?
This is ES6. Same thing though. For the sake of this, for right now.
Okay.
So imagine those lets are vars.
Oh, they changed the vars.
I'm not. Yes, the lets are ES6. They're not. Okay. Do you want to know what the difference is? We'll dive into the difference of this. So, variables deal in what's called function scope.
Okay.
So, if I say I have a variable that's the third line, and I only plan on it running in my for loop, for instance, I can actually use it everywhere down below, even though I don't have any plans to use it down below outside of the for loop. And that's because the scope of the variables are in the function scope, so it gets raised to anywhere in that function basically.
Okay.
And let only runs what's called block scope, so it only runs in that little block of code. And so let is a tighter way of using variables essentially. It's the same sort of thing.
So it's not replacing it, it's just another way to write it?
Correct. It has a tighter scope than vars do, variables. They're all variables, but there's var, there's let, and then there's const, which stands for constant, which means that you can't really, it doesn't mean that you can't change the value, but it partially means that. But don't worry about that. All right, so how do we fix, and mind you, same thing with variables. We can name these things anything we want as long as it's not a keyword that's built into the language. So how do we fix the array here that it says, hey, there's something wrong with this array. How do we fix it?
Oh, shit. There's no bracket.
That's right. So we throw our bracket in there, and it's fixed. So how do we fix...
There's a missing... what is this called?
Parentheses?
Parentheses, yeah. I wanted to say paragraph. I'm like, I know it's not paragraph.
And there we go. We fixed the brackets, braces, and quotes here.
I've already been doing that in my code. The little that I've been writing.
Previous plus current. Your code is missing a piece. Your code should fix the missing piece of the array. I thought we did. My array.reduce.
Maybe it needs to be
previous, comma current.
cleaned out and redone.
Maybe. We're using. This is kind of interesting that they're using ES6 in here. They're really trying to hammer it in instead of focusing on it just being complete debugging. Previous is not defined. I have to. Alright, so what's happening here is I have to look up reduce JavaScript function real quick. So this is MDN, Mozilla Developer Network.
This is new?
Huh?
Weren't you saying this was new?
Not new, but this is another resource that you can use to get better. So here, we see that we have what's called a callback function. Hello from Serbia. Hey!
Wow.
So what's missing here is we're actually just missing this. Or
Oh, I thought it's in a...
function. And then in here, account value, return account. So that was where our mistake was, I think. What in the fuck is going on here? Alright. There we go. There's that. So I'm going to pull up the documentation one more time. So we have our function. I'll pull it up over here so I can look at it. So function. That's correct. So that's going to return previous plus current. Oh god, I messed this all up. Alright, I'm gonna skip this one. We could jump around in it, but I didn't think we'd be jumping into callback functions yet. So, like, there's a lot of stuff going on in that. I don't even want to begin to try and explain callback functions right now. So we're just gonna skip that little section right there. Hopefully there's no more callback functions moving forward in debugging. Okay. So we're jumping into this. So remember, there's a whole bunch of things that. Shit. All right, we're stopping here with debugging because I don't. We're getting into advanced stuff. Let me look at this real quick. I'm gonna look at some things, see if there's any good ones in here to go over, because I don't want to confuse you. This is pretty simple. This is the assignment operator. Remember the equals? So you can't assign anything in an if statement. You can only compare things. So here to fix this one, we'd put equal, and we'd be good. Okay. I'm surprised they don't throw debugger in here. I'm gonna report a bug real quick. I think I should. I don't know if this counts as a. This doesn't count as a bug, but. Welcome, Gio. Okay, so I'm going to show you something that they're not covering right now for debugging. Let's go to CodePen. Shit. All right, let's try this. So there's this thing called debugger, and let's say you want to, because it's all about finding a point in time where your code is bugging out, where you're having issues. And so you could go through and you could console log that stuff, but sometimes you just want to, you can just pause the code at that specific point when your code hits it. You understand what I mean? When the code's running and it goes to where that is. So in this case, if we were to, and the debugger only runs if you have the inspector open. That's the only time that it works. It's part of it. But let's say here we threw a debugger. We saved it, and now you see our debugger hit. When our code runs, it's pausing right here. Now, it doesn't do anything, but our code is right here, and you can see it in our pin.js. Now, what we can do is, say we're not sure our Ajax, say we're not sure this code is running here. We can use debugger in here. So say instead of console logging the value of data 1, we're going to throw a debugger here. So if it hits that, let's go ahead and refresh the page. So hit our debugger right here. So what we can do in our console, if you look at the bottom here, and I'm going to move this around so people who are watching the video can see it, because it's right in the very bottom. If you guys see right here in our console, what we can do is we can call the variables that are local to that. So we can call that data1 object. Remember, data1 is, and we can see what it looks like. In this case, it's links to free code camp and stuff like that. So we know it exists, we know the value of it, and we can check it. So you can use debugger as another way of checking your variables and checking to see that your code is actually getting called. Because you may be assuming, hey, it actually gets hit here, but you could console log a value there to make sure that it's getting hit or that it's the correct value. Or you could throw a debugger and just check multiple ones like that. That might be a little advanced. Alright, where was I? So that's a little bit about debugging. It was a little more advanced in there than I thought it was going to be, minus the debugger stuff that they added. Right now, we're really at the point where you need to go in two different directions. One, you need to finish up your portfolio, challenge yourself with the HTML and the CSS, and two, you need to start, once you finish that, you need to move on into the algorithms. And this is going to be the hardest part for you to getting started. I think that's a new course. We need to get into the algorithms here. This is going to be where you're going to really train your brain, retrain your brain to think like a developer. And this is going to be the hardest part, and I encourage you to use whiteboards and everything. You're going to read these instructions, you're going to have to comprehend them. And so let's talk about how you're going to, like an example of how you would solve this. So I'm not going to actually write in code. But in here, an algorithm is essentially logic that's going to run in your function that accomplishes a certain task. In this case, we want to reverse a string. String is just words. And that is a massive hint. So they give you a little bit of a hint. You may need to turn the string into an array before you can reverse it. That's a hint. So for you, what would you need to do in that? What if you were to break this up into pieces for you to understand?
And turn it into a string.
No, it is a string. Remember, look, we're passing a string in. This is our str. We need to figure out how to turn the string into an array. And then we need to find out how to reverse it. So one thing that I would encourage you to get familiar with are array functions JavaScript, so that you know what's in the library. And you can do that at W3 Schools if you want and kind of see it play out. So we have JavaScript arrays. So array properties, length is all, you remember length tells us what it is. Now we have the array methods. What does concat do? What does copy within do? What does every do? What does fill do? What does filter do? What does find do? What does find index do? What does for each do? What does index of do? Go through all of these and see what they do and understand them. You can read this, but you know, we talked about pop, we talked about push. There's a lot more on here. And these are things that you're going to need to find out, such as you need to find out what they all do. In order to fully, and this is just array. There's also string. There's also number. So before you get started on the algorithms, what I want you to do is I want you to, oh shit, it looks like our internet got fucked today. I want you to go in and see the array, the boolean, the math, the number, and the string functions and play around in it. So like in concat, what's great about W3 Schools, you can visually see it usually. So click the button join two arrays. If I click try, it joins these arrays. So if I'm like, oh, I'm not sure what it's supposed to do, let's go ahead and remove lone and we can kind of play around with it to see what happens. And what's supposed to happen is it's supposed to join the two arrays. So we run it again. Oh, we have to hit run here, sorry. When we run it again, you'll see it adds our two arrays together. So that's what join does in its most basic version. But you need to know what it all does in its most basic version. Hello, get down. So that you can fully understand how to move forward.
Okay. So it's kind of like what I wanted to do with the vocabulary.
Yeah, kind of. You're going to learn what actually exists in JavaScript, essentially. Okay, so we're going to end today early so that you can get back to working on your stuff, and tomorrow I'm going to have some stuff planned. My goal is for you to spend some time on the portfolio, but really dive into the JavaScript stuff, because that's going to be the bread and butter of web development.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to end a little early. You want to say bye?
Bye.
Some code fights? Code fights are it's too early for her to do code fights.
That sounds vicious.
Well, let's see. We'll show you what code fights are. I don't think you'd be ready for code fights. So let's log in real quick.